Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to get another monotub grow going today. These monotub grows have been really popular with you guys, and I'm having fun with them too. It's going to be another one in our favorite monotub, the medium-sized monotub from Microppose. I recently did a little survey on the channel asking you guys what species you would like to see me grow next in the monotub, and Maitake, Hen of the Woods, was the clear winner. But there were some other ones that were popular too, like Lion's Mane, Shiitake, Chestnut. So I just happened to have 5 pounds of Shiitake spawn ready. So I went ahead and did a Shiitake monotub first, which is what you see here. So each species has its own challenges in trying to grow it in a monotub kind of setting. Some species are really conducive to monotubs, other ones aren't. The biggest challenge I see with Shiitake is that Shiitakes really love to pin along the sides and bottom of the block. So we're gonna have to figure out a way, once this block is ready to fruit, get it up off the base a little bit. I kind of have a plan for that. We'll see how it works. So even though the monotub setting presents its own unique challenges with different strains, different species, it is cool that this is a zero plastic waste way to grow mushrooms. So that's cool. I know that is really important to a lot of you guys, just talking to you on the channel, the whole idea of reducing plastic waste in mushroom cultivation, and using a monotub is one way to do that. So I'm going to be using the Shiitake 5000 strain from Mycelium Emporium. They sell it in liquid culture form. Just grew that out on grain and did my straight up pasteurized fuel pellet process with 5 pounds of grain here in the tub. I'm not going to go through that process in this video. I've showed it in my last 2 videos. If you want to see the full process of pasteurizing the fuel pellets, mixing in the grain, all that, check out my King Oyster and my Reishi monotub videos. Those are up on my channel. You can see the whole process there. Here we're already in the colonization phase. So I'm going to zoom you in a second here so you can see the surface of this block a little more closely. I have the filter patches in place on my medium monotub here from Microppose, and I'm doing my tub inside of a tub method for colonization. I like to put my tubs inside of this larger 105 quart Sterilite tote just to control the airflow around it, because as I've mentioned before, these monotubs are not hermetically sealed. There is a chance that a little mold contaminant spore can get in through where the lid attaches to the base of the monotub. So having it inside of a larger tote gives it a little extra protection. I do the same thing with my cordyceps tubs, and it greatly reduced my contamination. Okay, I got the manual focus on so I can kind of focus through that outer sheet of plastic and get you on the substrate surface there, so hopefully you can see it. As I've talked about in my previous videos, there are 3 distinct phases of colonization for Shiitake. So you have regular colonization, white up, and then you have popcorning, and then browning. So right now, after running for a few weeks, we're pretty much fully colonized here. You can see the whole block is white. At that point, it's going to start getting all lumpy on the surface. That's the popcorning phase. And after that, all those lumps, surface of the block, they're going to start browning up. In general, you want your Shiitake to colonize for a couple months at least. You really want it to brown up nicely, because you're just going to get a lot better first flush, a lot better quality mushrooms. So we're nicely colonized on top here. Still have a ways to go. Probably in a week or so we're going to start seeing some popcorning, then hopefully we'll see some browning. I'm trying not to move this tote any more than I have to, because one thing with Shiitake is if you handle them a lot, it will induce premature pinning. So we're trying not to do that. Just going to leave it in here, try and leave it kind of undisturbed until it's ready to fruit, and then we'll jump back in at that point. All right, so here we go. We are now getting to the interesting part. This is the stage I foresaw as being the toughest in terms of trying to grow Shiitake in a monotub setup like this. Shiitake don't just pin where you give them space. They pin wherever they want to. So if you're growing in a bag, they're not just going to pin on top of the bag. They're going to pin all over. They're going to be pushing against the plastic, bottom, sides, everything. So I'm assuming they're going to do the same thing in a monotub. Now we are at about a month and 10 days since we inoculated this tub. I'm going to zoom you in here in a second. We got a lot of things going on. We got beautiful popcorning, beautiful browning, and we have ourselves a nice little shiitake mushroom popping on its own over here on the side. So that's telling me that it is time to attempt to fruit this guy. Lovely little shiitake mushroom all by his lonesome over on the side. We'll try and get him some buddies. But you can also see all that really nice popcorning, browning we got on the surface of the block. So that I'm very happy with. I'm hoping that's going to lead to a nice first flush. As I mentioned in my last video, when your shiitake pin prematurely before you get nice browning, a lot of times you'll get a lot of weird mutants and aborts on your first flush. So hopefully we'll be able to avoid that. So my plan here is, I didn't say this was a good plan, but it is a plan. I'm going to remove the lid of this monotub. I'm going to pick our little mushroom so it doesn't get smushed. Then I'm going to try and invert our entire shiitake cake onto this stand. This will give us some room, allow it to fruit underneath if it wants to, sides, top, everywhere. I'm thinking the mushroom pins, unless they get directly pinched by these bars, will be able to grow right through them, allowing us to harvest them. Toughest part, I think, is going to be getting it evenly on this, getting it released from the bottom part of the tub, and keeping it all in one piece. So, wish me luck. A lot of moisture, that's alright. That's gonna come off anyway. Get rid of him. Feels fairly solid, so this won't be a total disaster. Block released pretty easily, actually, from the tub. That's really interesting. That's one thing I did not expect. I did not expect to not have any popcorning on the sides or the underneath surface of this block. That is really interesting, actually, because normally when you do this in a bag, you'll just have popcorning everywhere. This block actually feels fairly solid, so I'm fairly confident I can invert it back top up onto this stand. Okay, that happened. This is total insanity, but hey, we're here. It's working. This is a crucial step in this process, so hit me up in comments to let me know what you guys would do at this step, at this point. I'm going to move it into a larger master tote at this point. So this is what we're gonna go with. Give it some room. I can lightly mist the inside of this tote just to keep the humidity high. We'll just see what develops. Once your blocks start to send fruits like this one did, you have to do something. You have to send it to fruiting one way or the other. When I saw that mushroom on top, honestly, I expected to have more mushrooms poking out on the sides and the bottom of the block because that's normally what I see with bags. Not happening here. So we kind of just have to observe it, keep the humidity high, which is exactly what I would do for a lot of other species of mushrooms. So I'm just going to go with that strategy and we'll see what develops. It is picking time. We're almost exactly 2 months from inoculation. And we have some nice big fatty shiitakes on top. Not a lot of shiitakes, but nicely formed big shiitakes. So we're going to pick these off, see what we got, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to do for the second flush. This one's enormous. Like, this thing's probably like 6-7 inches here, this big boy. A few other ones, we have some little pins starting. Actually, some are starting on the sides of the block as well. In hindsight, I didn't get pins on the bottom and the sides for the first flush. We probably could have just left it in that monotub for the first flush, but this is new territory for me. I'm not really sure what to do. I'm just kind of feeling it out as I go. So, live and learn, but we still got some beautiful shiitakes on top here. Let's get them out, we'll pick them off. When you pick off your shiitake, you want to really try and get all that mushroom tissue off of your block. If you don't, any of that first flush mushroom tissue that you leave on your block is really prone to developing trichoderma mold on your block, so you really want to try and pick them really clean. If you rip a little of your substrate away, not a big deal. It's better to take a little substrate than it is to leave mushroom tissue on your block. It's a beautiful shiitake there. Sometimes you can just grab them and twist and get them nice and clean. These seem to be coming pretty clean, so maybe I'll skip the knife for now and just go with the grab and twist method. Look at that. Some mondos there. Okay, so we ended up with almost 15 ounces on our first flush. That's a pretty measly first flush, honestly, for a block this size. But we're gonna go big time for the second flush. So I do have a little exudate, a little metabolite on the surface of my block underneath where that large cluster was in one other spot. So I'm just gonna give this a little rinse with some fresh water, and then I'm just gonna leave this right out on the table to dry out for 2 weeks. I'm at around 55% humidity down here, so that ambient humidity should suck the moisture right out of this block. We'll just let it dry out for a couple weeks, and then we'll go ahead and give it a soak with some cold water, slap it up a little bit. So shiitake, as you know, is a little kinky, doesn't mind being handled roughly. It's up for debate if it actually helps your flush at all, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And why not? You can take out a little aggression on your shiitake blocks, maybe get a few extra mushrooms. All right, so it's been a couple weeks since we got our first flush. Ready to initiate the second flush. I'm actually outside on my patio. I'm going to show you my setup. So the way we initiate the second flush is to soak our block. Obviously I'm working with a rectangular block here from our monotub. You could do the same thing with bag blocks, exact same method. Just got to have a cooler big enough to hold your blocks. So what I did is I just filled this cooler with some hose water. So I did throw a bunch of ice cubes in here as well to cool the water off even a little more. One thing you need to realize is these blocks are super buoyant when you let them sit and dry out for a week or two like this. So you definitely need to weigh them down. I have my little stand I've been using all along underneath my block here, blocks on top of that. And I just have a rigid sheet of plastic and my 20 kilogram suitcase weight on top of that to hold our block underneath the water. You can actually see the bubbles coming up as our block is drinking up all that moisture. I'm gonna keep my lid closed to keep our water nice and cool. And after that, we'll go ahead and drain our water off and we'll go right back to the fruiting chamber. So we went with about a 10-hour soak, and I just pulled the plug on the cooler, let everything drain off. I do use just regular tap water for this. I'm on city water, so there is probably some residual chlorine. Seems to work fine for me. Some people do actually add like 1% bleach to their soak water when they do this, just to discourage surface contams. I've never done that, but I do use just straight up tap water, and it seems to work fine for me. So soaked for 10 hours, pulled the plug on the cooler, let everything drain off. Then I just left it up on the rack for a couple hours, just kind of let that excess moisture drip off. And this thing will have definitely gained some weight. Do a weight check on this boy here. That's gained, like I can feel it. That's a lot of weight. I mean, that's probably even a little more than it was initially in the Monotub. Let's give you a nice close-up real quick. Hopefully all this excess moisture will get us a monster second flush, get some delicious, giant, succulent, luscious shiitakes. That's kind of hard to say, luscious shiitakes. I went with 10 hours for a soak, but anywhere between 6 and 12 hours is generally recommended. It's about 10 days after our soak, and this is our second flush. It's time to start picking. We have mushrooms of varying maturity here, so I'm probably going to be picking over a span of 3 days, I would say, but some are definitely ready to pick now. I'd say some of these are probably 4 inches across. So we got some monsters, and you can see this block is just totally loaded up with pins. So obviously our soak was very effective. There's 2 reasons I wanted to do this video. I definitely wanted to take on the challenge of trying to grow shiitake in a monotub. Although we are out of the monotub now, we just use the monotub basically to create a massive shiitake block. But I also wanted to show you this soak method, because this is really how you stimulate subsequent flushes with shiitake blocks. I've done this up to 4 times with my blocks, where you just let them sit out in open air for a couple weeks and then do that soak. This time we did about 10 hours. Anywhere from 6 to 12 is usually pretty effective. But for now, I'm going to back you up a little bit. I'm going to show you this simple fruiting chamber setup. Super effective. Shiitake are really easy to fruit, simple setups. And then we're going to do some picking. Alright, so super simple setup here. I just have a tub on top of a tub. These are our 105 quart Sterilite totes that we like to use. I have 2-inch holes drilled in this bottom one, 1.5 inch holes in the top. Both work fine. These are just different generations of totes that I've made over the years. But we have our visible mist humidifier pumping in humidified air on this far side of the tub here. And we have our Inkbird IHC humidity controller running this thing at 85% humidity. The sensor is right here. So our humidified air comes in, fills up the tub till the sensor says it's up to that 85%, and then it'll just chill until it needs to kick on again. These shiitake obviously fruit beautifully in this environment. They're not as demanding of fresh air exchange as, say, oysters are. So just this fresh air coming in through the holes in our tubs is sufficient to get some beautiful shiitake mushrooms, as you can see. So you could do this just in a single tub, just because I was worried about the height, because my block's sitting so high, and the height of my hose coming in, it just worked out better for me to do a tub on top of a tub. Either way will work fine. But right now I'm going to take this apart, we'll get our block out, we'll do some picking. So I brought them upstairs to get them in some better light for picking, and the light was shining through the window right onto the mushrooms, and you could actually see the spores dumping off them. Spores are definitely coming off these big mature ones here that are opened up. Those are the ones we're going to be picking off, and we'll leave some of these other smaller ones to pick in the next couple days. That's a monster. That one's probably 4 inches across, I would say. Heavy too. A nice weight. Again, this is the S5000 strain from Mycelium Emporium. So we only picked, looks like maybe 8 or 10 mushrooms there. We'll pick the rest over the next couple days, but just those few mushrooms we picked today were already up to 1 pound 4 ounces. So this should be a really nice second flush, and we'll check back once we have them all picked off and get a final weight. All right, guys, here we go. Final weigh-in time. Moment of truth. That is a box of shiitake right there. Oh man, we almost maxed the scale out. We're about to blow a bearing there on the OXO food scale. We got a little over 5 pounds. So we know that box weighs about 4 ounces, so we're actually a little under 5 pounds. So any way you cut it, that is one hell of a flush of shiitake mushrooms. Now this was a heavy block. This block weighed just under 20 pounds. but to get just a hair under 5 pounds of shiitakes in one flush is pretty awesome. I don't think I'm gonna beat that single flush record anytime soon. So I'm glad I got to show you guys this soak method. I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. Like I said, you could do a couple more flushes at least. I've gone up to 4 flushes with these shiitake blocks and still got really good yields. So especially if you're gonna go with a monster block this size, go for 4 flushes. Why not? You're gonna keep getting beautiful mushrooms like this. And I have a recipe I'm excited to try with these shiitakes. I'm gonna be working on that here shortly. This is way more than I need, so I'll probably end up giving some to my neighbor. But I am going to cut the video off here. So as always, hit me up in comments, and if you guys found this even remotely interesting, inspiring, anything, please give me a thumbs up, help launch it out into the expansive YouTube metaverse, and maybe I can quit my day job in 10 years or so. That would be amazing. So like I said, hit me up in comments, guys. Let me know what you think, and I will catch you next video.